it's surreal, right? You get into the cadaver lab and, you have your scrubs on. It's like, it feels real. Like this is what, in most people's mind, like, oh, this is med school. And,
Oh yeah.
This is med school. I have a scalpel. I'm about to really dig in and get my hands dirty.
Like you're a surgeon.
And, yeah, you're thinking you're a surgeon. And I think, just that feeling is very brief because, they really just throw you into the fire and, you get into the lab, they give you a 2-3 minute rundown of what you have to do, what you have to dissect. And it quickly sinks in like, man, like I am not only about to dissect, I have to know all of this material by tomorrow.
Hey guys, Dr. Dale here. Really quick before we start this episode, I want to ask you to support our mission by doing one thing. Just subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or our podcast channel, whichever one you listen to. Just hit that subscribe button. The way our podcasts get out there is by you guys liking it, by subscribing, and of course by sharing as well. So if you do one of those things for us right now, we really appreciate it. We work very hard to make these episodes for you guys. We work very hard to get them out for you guys and just to try to uplift the entire community. So if you can help us out by doing one of those things, subscribe, share, or like every time. I really appreciate it. Love you guys.
Really got on Rex, ain't playing around. When I go get it, stop playing around. Really got on Rex, ain't playing around. Black men, white coats, here we up right now, yeah.
What is up, fam? It's Dr. Dale, the author of How to Raise a Doctor Wisdom from Parents Who Did It, the author of PreMed Mondays, author of Black Men and White Coats, the author of the Doc to Doc Children series, and the author of a new book, which I'm about to drop here probably a couple months. It's going to be called Author and Expert. That's because a lot of you healthcare professionals reach out to me, ask me how I write these books. So I'm going to give it to you, tell you exactly how I'm able to publish these books. And you listen to the Black Men and White Coats podcast. Super excited about today's guest. Had to go back to the medical students on this one, guys. Really got a great student that I'm excited to introduce to you all. But before I do, major announcement as always. Got to make sure I announce our MCAT scholarship winner. So let me make sure I'm pronouncing this right. This week's MCAT scholarship winner is Array Tang Inao. Array, or it might be Array, I apologize. Tang Inao. Last name is Enow. So super excited to be able to pay for your MCAT. We're going to reimburse your MCATs. And if you guys want to know a little bit more about Array, check out this video right here.
Hi, my name is Array. I am a senior at UT Dallas. I am interested in going to med school. I'm really passionate about helping people live better lives, live healthier lives. I want to be a revolutionary doctor, targeting the underserved communities, and I just want to help people live better. I am involved in a couple of activities. I'm a member of Phi Theta Kappa. I'm a member of Tau Sigma. I also receive a couple of scholarships from school, and I really just want to go out there in the world and try to make the world a better place. We're suffering so much. Our healthcare system is suffering so much. There's so many underserved communities that don't have access to quality doctors. So I want to be that person who goes out there and reaches out to the underserved community, trying to make a difference, trying to make a change. I just want to be somebody who's got more to give than taking from people. Some people just do it because of the money, but I want to do it from my heart. I want to serve people, especially the Black community and Latino community, and go out to other parts of the world and serve, and not doing it just only for a paycheck, but doing it out of love and out of respect for other people. Yeah. And I also play the piano for my church. I try to volunteer. I do extracurricular activities. I'm also a certified pharmacy technician. I work at Walmart, and I used to work at CVS before. I took up the challenge, and I went ahead and got certified to give COVID shots. And so far, I've given over 20 COVID shots, and I'm wanting to increase the number. So I just want to go out there and serve people, be a better doctor, be a better person, and try to make the world a better place as I possibly can. And I believe that together we can make the world a better place. We can rise up to the podium and take domination and show that Black people have a lot of stuff to offer to the community. And I just want to spread the love and the message of peace and promote the Black people and promote medicine as a whole.
All right, so congratulations to you again, Ray. We're rooting for you. We know you can do this. We think you can become a phenomenal doctor. And any other pre-med who's taking the MCAT, we are paying for your MCAT exams. we're reimbursing you. Make sure you go to blackmenandwhitecoats.org/MCAT, blackmenandwhitecoats.org/MCAT, and we got you covered. We're cutting checks, man. Not checks really, it's PayPal. We're transferring PayPal funds, but same thing. We're cutting checks for y'all, trying to help you guys out along this journey. So Ray, all you have to do is email us info@blackmenandwhitecoats.org. Just email us info@blackmenandwhitecoats.org, and we got you covered. All right. Next major announcement is everybody make sure you're on our email list, because we get a lot of questions about, hey, when are you doing this? When are you doing that? Well, it all comes out to the email list. So blackmenandwhitecoats.org/email, blackmenandwhitecoats.org/email. And our next major announcement, I got to check my calendar, but I believe that the next virtual mentoring luncheon, I believe right now we have it planned for Saturday, June 26th. So Saturday, June 26th is going to be our next virtual mentoring luncheon. But check your emails, make sure on the email list, we're going to send out an email to all of you all to make sure you guys are aware and as many people as possible can join. For kids, we say 8 years old and up. And then for doctors, medicines, we need all you guys there to help mentor these kids. We break out into small sessions. Everybody brings their lunch virtually. We chat over Zoom or whatever, and we have a great time, right? A couple hundred people on there the past few times. Let's keep on growing it so we can get these kids ready and inspired for the field of medicine. All right, now it's time to do what we're here to do. I know y'all getting tired of hearing Dr. Dale talk, so I'm going to introduce you to my guy, man. This is my guy, student doctor. I just want to call him doctor, but we're not quite there yet. But student Dr. Chris Koilor. I'm going to go through him, ask him a lot of questions. He's a medical student now out of Temple, but I'm not going to spill the beans on all this stuff. I want you guys to hear his story, some really interesting stuff in his story. I'll just talk about, say, one of them right now, which fascinates me is he didn't really get that exposure and insight into the field of medicine until late in college, I believe. I believe it was his junior year, but we'll get into that here in a second. But Chris, my guy, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you taking the time to, come chat with us on the podcast, share your story, hopefully inspire the next generation. Not even the next generation. Honestly, most of our listeners are actually around my age, healthcare professionals and things of that sort. So inspire them, my generation, and the next generation. So, your story is going to be touching a lot of people. So I appreciate you doing that, man.
No problem.
All right. So here, I want to start asking a first question to every guest. I'm going to try to remember. I remembered it today, but I'm going to try to remember every episode. All right. So the first question I want to ask every guest now is going to be, if you weren't going to be a medical doctor, what would you do?
I'd say I'd probably be doing something with like fitness, whether it's like a gym instructor or having, my own fitness classes, maybe working as an athletic trainer, something along those lines. I think, just being around, I guess, exercise and helping people to get better is like something I've always enjoyed. So, being in that environment, I think seeing competitive nature and being able to see people make progress is something I would also enjoy if I wasn't, pursuing medicine full time.
Do you have a sports background yourself?
Yeah, I played football and basketball coming up. And then when I got to high school, I played, varsity football 4 years. And that was where my football career ended. I didn't play in college or anything, but, I still follow sports to this day, and still passionate about, some of the teams I follow. So
when you were a kid playing football, were you wanting to go all the way to the NFL, or was it like, yeah, I'm just playing for fun while I'm young?
I think, I think I had dreams of maybe going to like get a scholarship to play in college. I think I didn't think I was going to go to the NFL or anything, but, I was decent enough to maybe earn a scholarship. I just think my size is probably what limited me. But, I was realistic. I knew what my ceiling was. And, I decided to just go to a school where I could get a good education and pursue, something else I was passionate about.
Yeah, that sounds like my story for basketball. Same thing, right? For me, and playing basketball. All right, now let's take it way back, right? Childhood. Tell me about your childhood. Where'd you grow up?
Yes, I'm from West Philadelphia.
Born and raised on the playground is where I spent most of my days. How many times you heard that? How many times people done that to you?
Every time, but it's always, obviously from the people that aren't from Philly. You say from West Philadelphia, that's the first thing that comes to mind for them. But yeah, I'm from West Philadelphia. Grew up there my whole life. I grew up in a household with both parents, and I was the youngest of 4 boys. So I had a lot of role models growing up. a lot of structure, I guess I can say, and blessed to come from a family where there were, people that had already, been to college and kind of set the path for me, going through school and knowing how important it was and what my options were. But I grew up in a home that was, I was very blessed to have just a supportive family that allowed me to be myself and supported me in everything that I wanted to do.
So, was college ever not an option for you in your household?
Never.
Never.
Never. My dad actually is from Liberia, West Africa, and so he came here and paid his own way through school, got a degree, and that was ultimately his goal. Like he wanted to put his boys through school, and he was very serious when it came to school because like I said, he came from Liberia, so he comes from a background where not a lot of people in his village had that education or the opportunity to even receive an education. So it's something he took very serious. He didn't play around with it, and he made sure that we were also serious about school and knew why an education was so important. Especially when he has family back home that can barely read and write and don't have those opportunities. So for him to come here, find his way here, and be able to go to school and get a degree and provide for his family, that was something that he never took for granted and made sure we knew that. So.
They say that that level of success, that drive, some of it kind of goes away with the third generation, right? So you got your dad, then you, so you're gonna have a lot of work to do with your kids, right? Because your dad knows what that drive was like. What that drive was like because you saw your dad do it, and you had that direct influence. But then your kids are gonna have a different story, right? You're gonna be a doctor, more than likely you're gonna have a certain level of affluence, right? So your kids are gonna grow up in a certain environment. I mean, I think about it with my kids now, like all the stuff you just said, essentially for taking things for granted. Of course, I love all my kids to death, but they just don't get certain things, right? A lot of things they will take for granted. We try to make it so they don't, but they don't know any different, right? Because both your parents are doctors and such. So you're gonna have a lot of stuff on your hands, man, as you're going through to keep that, what your dad passed on to you, what your parents passed on to you, for you to keep it going down through your generations, man.
Right. No, yeah, I can already imagine how just my kids will be growing up in probably a different environment than I grew up, and the way they see life and see things will probably be a little bit different. But hopefully I can do my best as a parent when I get there to express the same values and kind of instill that in them also.
All right. So you said you didn't really get this exposure to medicine until later in college, right? Until your junior in college. So before that, what was your life look like? What were you wanting to do? We know you like football, but wasn't your career. So what were you thinking you were going to do before that?
Yes, I mean, coming out of high school, I had an interest in science. My mom, she's a cardiac technologist, and my dad, he got a second degree and became a nurse.
What does a cardiac technologist mean? What does that do?
So she does like stuff in the stress lab, and like monitoring with like EKGs and stuff like that. And my dad, is a nurse, so I had some influence in healthcare and medicine, and I also enjoyed just the sciences growing up. But I didn't think a doctor was in my scope. I didn't have the influence. I didn't see it as, I guess, attainable, that early on, just because, I don't know if I was intimidated by the career path, just how many years it took, the admissions test and just everything that entails, everything you have to do to get to med school. And I didn't have any real, role models to look at and say like, oh, I can do this. So, throughout college, I was very, wishy-washy with what I wanted to do. I considered maybe like something like psychology, but, I didn't think the career paths for that were too great. I then considered PA school. And I think, once I started looking into PA school, I felt like it was feasible for me and something that I could definitely achieve. And I'd be the first to get, a second degree or a graduate degree in my family. And so,
so while you were thinking PA school, is it that you thought about medicine and said, no, I can't do it? Or you just thought PA school and didn't really even give medicine a thought?
Yeah, like I didn't, I think it was more of like, I saw it as like a shorter route. and, I would have, be able to do some of the same things and kind of maybe still fulfill that, that desire to pursue medicine. I just never really gave the whole doctor thing a serious thought. I don't know, it just never really was in my, I just didn't think it was in my scope. Even though, I was a good student, I took care of business in the classroom, but I just never gave it that real thought, because I think it was because I never really saw it. I never really saw it. And so, PA I thought was like the closest thing. And it was like, oh, 2 years, I could probably do that. And, I was going to go for that.
So then what happened? What was the trigger that kind of turned this thing around now?
Yeah, so I did SMDP.
And this isn't that long ago, right? You're a first year med student. So you're talking just what, 3-4 years ago?
I graduated 2017. So, okay. I was in college from 2013 to 2017.
Yeah. So this is all relatively fresh.
Yeah. It was a quick turnaround. And what changed was I did a summer program at University of Virginia. I did SMDP, Summer Medical Dental Education Program. The name has now changed to SHPEP, I think. Yeah, SHPEP. I think
SHPEP for anybody who wants to look at it. SHPEP, SHPEP.
Right. So yeah, I did SMDP, and that was like, it was a career changing moment for me, just because I was surrounded with other men and women that looked like me, that were all so serious and passionate about wanting to become a doctor. And, just even interacting with some of the med students at UVA, they were bringing in Black physicians, just the representation. And, I shadowed some. And I think just being in that environment, seeing like how, they weren't thinking twice about it. Like, I'm going to be a doctor. And, even like to this day, a lot of the people from my cohort at SMDP are now in either med school, dental school, or physical therapy school. Like, they're actually doing it, so I think it was just seeing that and being able to, receive the influence and seeing that like, oh, like this is achievable for people that look like me, and seeing the med students and the physicians and hearing, other people's journeys. Like, not everyone was straight A student, and, people, where I had to retake the MCAT, and just hearing like those trials and errors, and seeing like, you don't have to be, some, 4.0 student and just crush every class you take to go and become a doctor. And I think that was some of the perception that I had. And so just seeing that and being surrounded by them really made me reflect. And I was so inspired. I went back to school, and I was like, I'm going to try and go to med school.
So going into the program, were you thinking medicine a little bit, or why'd you even apply to the program? Because I did the program, when I did it, it was called SMEP. It used to be MMEP. Then I think for a year or two, it was SMEP. That's when I did it. And then I switched to SMDP. I did it back in, 2004, I think, a while back now. And most people who I knew who came into it were already kind of wanting to be doctors. But it sounds like you weren't sure. So what was going into it? What was your thought?
Yeah, I think it was more so just for the exposure. Just like I saw it as an opportunity to be surrounded by other Black and brown health professionals that could provide me with, just some career advice, some insight, and just give me some exposure to, the field of medicine. But I, wasn't, 100% sold on wanting to be a doctor at that point. I came out with that mindset.
I love your story. I used to wonder, because I always thought, again, most folks that I did it with, we went into there thinking we already wanted to be doctors, right? So I used to wonder, I used to ask myself, is this program, it's a phenomenal program, but it's put on by the AAMC, American Association of Medical Colleges, or Association of American Medical Colleges, and sponsored by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. So phenomenal program. But I used to wonder, like, are the kids getting into this program kids that were going to become doctors anyways, kids that were going to make it, because people I knew who did, I'm like, man, we're going to do it anyways, probably, right? But I love your story, because you're a kid that was not going to do it, right? So without that, so that program literally, there's a whole lot of you around the country, not just you, but that you're a perfect example of how that program works and how it puts out more doctors into this country. Right.
Yeah, it really did. It changed my whole perspective, and, just it made it seem like, oh, this is definitely achievable for me. And, like I said, like just being surrounded by so many people that had that vision, and, hearing their stories and, what they had planned for the future was just inspirational for me. And I was like, I can do this too.
And that's what it is, man. Like, people just need to see that one person, or not even one. Yours was better. You saw people and make it say exactly what you just said. I can do this too. So let's rewind a little bit more, and then we'll fast forward again. What was your biggest challenge in your youth, pre-college, like, junior high, high school? What was your biggest challenge along that journey to get to where you're at today? Like, school, any, friends, or what would you say was your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge coming up through school, I think it was probably just, just being confident, like in my ability to pursue whatever it is I wanted to pursue. I think, I just didn't have the confidence early on. And that's kind of why I feel like my process was delayed a few years, and why, I didn't, realize I could do something until my junior year of college and stuff. I think it's just the confidence factor, being able to believe in yourself, that you can really go out there and achieve whatever it is you put your mind to. And I felt like I was kind of selling myself short early on when I look back now, because, the confidence I have now, like anything I put my mind to, I know I can go and do it. But that was something that it took me a few years to develop as I was getting older and going through, I guess, college and some of my undergrad studies, and just, putting myself in uncomfortable situations and coming out successful. I think it took some of those experiences for me to really gain that confidence and feel that.
So that's also good to hear, right? Because I think a lot of people are going to be in that same situation where they don't have that confidence, and you got to college, you had the opportunity to develop that confidence for yourself. And I know, so I do a lot of work with pre-meds, of course, right? So I hear the other side of that a lot, where pre-meds come to college and they don't have that confidence and they can't build it. But something happened with you that you were able to build it. So what was it? Was it just sitting in class and knowing you could do it? Because most people, I would say, probably struggle to build it once they get that far.
Right. I think it was excelling in class. And then also, a few other things were just hearing from some of my professors of how much they saw in me and believed in me. And it wasn't just artificial, like it was very genuine, like, speaking of some of the maybe the papers I wrote, or like how I really stood out in class in certain ways. And then, I think the other thing was just putting myself up against like national competition when I applied to some of like these internships, and knowing like how competitive they were, how selective they were. And like, they wanted me out of, hundreds or even thousands of applicants. I'm one of, 20 or so to get selected. I think that kind of showed me like, oh, like you really, I really stand out amongst, a large selection of my peers. And I think that, that says something. So, whatever I'm doing, just continue to build on that and continue to grow in those ways to, make sure I continue to stand out in different ways.
That's huge. I love it, man. Really putting yourself out there to see, because I think that's a lot of things. A lot of people aren't willing to put themselves out there and see where they stand. And you have to get rid of that fear. You have to be willing to jump in there to compete, right? I'm big on competition. You got to be willing to compete to see where you stand out overall. So what did you do those years after college? It took me a while to realize it, but you had some time off. So what did you do during that time off?
Yeah, so when I left Penn State, I actually went straight into a 1-year accelerated post-bac program. Yeah. So, I did a post-bac because, like I said, I didn't decide to my junior year that I went to pursue med school. So I didn't have all my prereqs, and I wasn't trying to squeeze in, all my physics and orgo and all that stuff into my last few semesters. So I had already opted to go the post-bac route. That was just my decision. I thought it would be, just for my mental health, I thought it was a better option. And so I took a year right after I graduated. I went straight into a post-bac at Thomas Jefferson in Philadelphia, Thomas Jefferson University, and did that for a year. It was 10 months. And then after that, I studied for the MCAT for my first attempt. Didn't do as well as I wanted. So I sat out that cycle. And, with sitting out a year, I just got some work experience. I was working for a nonprofit.
You didn't even apply. You just took it and didn't even try to apply. You just said it's not.
Yes, like I submitted like my primary, but when it got time for secondaries, by that time I was getting secondaries. I was like, I'm not submitting my best work. And so I just didn't, I didn't go through with it. Yeah, I took that year and I worked. So I had a few jobs. I worked as, I was working for a nonprofit doing some pediatric cardiology research. We were doing like heart screenings and stuff. So that was pretty cool. And then I also scribed part-time, just to be, in a clinic environment, seeing patient interaction and stuff like that. And then studied for the MCAT, again, and I gave myself more time. I studied for like 6 months this time, part-time, obviously, because I was working. And I think having taken it already, I was already familiar with the test. I knew what to expect. So that helped. And then I reapplied. And so got in the second cycle.
How much did your MCAT score improve? Was it significant?
It wasn't, I mean, I guess it depends what you call significant. I jumped up like 6 points.
Yeah.
But,
So it was significant enough to make you feel confident in your application.
Yeah, because I was like right on the cusp of what, I thought would have been comfortable. And so I jumped up 6 points, and that was big enough for schools. I think that was a big enough jump for schools to look and say like, oh, like he really improved. I improved in the right sections. And so that, that helped. And schools were, happy to see that, and I had a successful application cycle going forward.
Nice. And that's good for people to hear too, because like when I applied, my MCAT score wasn't great. So I think I got like a 25 back in the day, which nowadays would probably be like a 500 or something like that. I don't know. But my MCAT score wasn't great. The rest of my application was solid, straight A's, great research. That's how you were.
Yeah.
So that was mine. I remember when I went to interview at Harvard Med School, right? So I got the Harvard interview. I'm sitting there interviewing at Harvard, like, man, your application is great, blah, blah. And she was like, they're like, yeah, if I were you, I would just take the MCAT again, And I thought, nah, I said, I'm good. So I didn't take it again. I was like, I'm not going to do it because I'm already getting accepted. I already know I'm going to be a doctor next year, right? And for me, it came down to this idea as to, and they weren't looking for much. I think they just wanted me to go up a couple points, something. But it came down to this idea of, do I need to go to that school versus do I just need to become a doctor? So I just say that because in your case, you said, who knows, you might have been able to get in. You probably could have gotten somewhere right the first time. But in your case, you were kind of like, nah, I'm going to sit back and I'm gonna do it next cycle. In my case, I was like, I'm just going to go. So I say that because, every individual is going to have to think about that. Every student applying is going to have to think about, I knew I was going to get in. I already knew I was going to get in somewhere, right? It would have been different if I wasn't sure I was going to get in. And by that point in time, I might have already had an acceptance. So maybe that's why I was okay with it. But every individual is going to have to sit down in that situation, because it's the situation we see a lot, right? It's a common situation, and ask yourself, okay, am I going to get into where I want to get into, and make that decisions? Because for some people, it's a hard thing to do, to sit out for a year, 2, 3,
Right. And I think the biggest thing for me was just like evaluating how expensive it is to apply. And, having to do that twice, if I didn't get in the first time, that would have been, that would have been stressful, because it is very expensive to apply to med school. And, I was paying for most of my applications and stuff. So I just, I had to come to terms with like, is this a good investment right now, knowing that my score is not as strong as it could be. And that was ultimately, I think, the deciding factor for me. But, even going through that, like I was really upset. Like when I got my first MCAT score, because I just invested a whole year in a post-bac, was really grinding and studying, and like it didn't go as planned. And so it kind of felt like, I was crushed. Like I was like, man, like I just put in all this work to be set back. And, with the med school, it's like, you have to sit out a whole year just about. So, it was a really tough decision. But looking back in hindsight, like I'm extremely grateful for, listening to my gut, trusting myself, and just taking that time, because, at certain points, like you're ready to throw the towel in. Like you take the MCAT, it's not something you want to do multiple times. So, just going through that, taught me a lot about myself too, just perseverance.
So what would you have done differently on the MCAT the first go around?
I think I would have done more practice. And, you hear, I'm sure you've heard this from multiple people, but it really does come down to practice after you are comfortable with the content. And so, yeah, I mean, I didn't give myself enough practice early on. And I think I was on a time crunch, finishing the post-bac, trying to test in a good time frame so I could apply. So, I shortened my studying time just so I could try and get the application in, and it backfired. But I think the biggest thing is make sure you're doing a lot of practice and reviewing all the questions that you do, whether you get them right, get them wrong, make sure you review it and are able to really understand why you got it right. If you had to guess on something, then make sure you understand that content. And when you see that question again, you're able to thoroughly explain it to someone, what's important in this passage and why is this the right answer? Why are the wrong answers wrong? I think, understanding that logic as you go through the different sections will really help you to just be able to eliminate answer choices and navigate passages more efficiently as they come up.
While we're talking about MCAT, I forgot to say it at the start. So we have this deal with Kaplan. So we're going to be giving out, we haven't put it up yet, but we're going to put it up soon. So again, get on our email list, our email list. Go to blackmenandwhitecoats.org/email. So that way, whenever we announce it, But we're going to be giving out the Kaplan MCAT book set. So this is like a $250, $260 book set. We're going to give them out to you guys for free, right? So get on the email list and we're going to blast you guys an email, let you guys know when we put up online. And, probably the first 100 people to sign up will give you guys this $250 Kaplan book set, right? All right, so we got that. So med school. Let's and we'll start bringing it here to a wrap up. So I know keep me a little bit longer than I thought. So I appreciate you hanging tight. But med school, what was the biggest shock, actually tell me about the cadaver. We're about to get into a cadaver discussion before. Tell me about, I cut you off before the episode started, but tell me about the cadaver stuff. What happened there?
I think, so at Temple, we start with anatomy and, our first day of class, we're in the cadaver lab. And I think, it's surreal, right? You get into the cadaver lab and, you have your scrubs on. It's like, it feels real. Like this is what, and most people's mind, like, oh, this is med school. And,
oh yeah,
this is med school. I have a scalpel. I'm about to really dig in and get my hands dirty.
Like you're a surgeon.
And, yeah, you're thinking you're a surgeon. And I think, just that feeling is very brief because, they really just throw you into the fire and, you get into the lab, they give you a 2-3 minute rundown of what you have to do, what you have to dissect. And it quickly sinks in like, man, like I am not only about to dissect, I have to know all of this material by tomorrow because we have another lab tomorrow and it's only going to continue to double up. So, it was just like a very, looking back, like just that, it was such a quick instance of like, you feel like you made it and then you're like, man, my work hasn't even begun yet. Like this, that gratification of becoming a med student is very short-lived when you realize that you have not even, scratched the surface of what's in front of you. So
yeah, there's I listen to a podcast. I listen to a lot of basketball podcasts and stuff. We're a basketball loving family. My kids play basketball stuff. So there's one of the podcast guy was talking about how all the NBA players is their dream to get to NBA. It's like, oh, it's my dream to get here, my dream. And then you get to the NBA and you're like, okay, what now? Like now I got to start working. Same thing for med school, man. Right? Because it was your dream to get there, and yours is even worse probably because it was your dream to get there, and then you stand in the cadaver lab like, oh, I made it, and then they take that stuff off. And for those of you who haven't been in the cadaver lab, it stinks in there, right? You got the formaldehyde smell. You stand in front of a dead body, right? So it's different. Some people, depending on which class you're in, med school, some students might be passing out in the corners or whatever. Not to scare students away from going. It's a great feeling, you get used to it. So you might pass out once, that's it. But it's a real deal when you see that cadaver for the first time, man.
Yeah, I realized that you're on your own.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it for you guys. It's like the little toothpicks. We used to have like little toothpicks with a flag on them. Like, what is this?
That's how it typically is, but because of COVID, they modified how they were testing and stuff. So I mean, luckily we didn't have to go through that.
I remember that, man. Sitting there, I'm like, what is that toothpick pointing at? And then I had one of my boys, man. We had people, man, they would like take the stuff and they move it to some other location, and they just met that. And that needs to be all messed up, man. All messed up. All right. So as we're getting ready to wrap this up, tell me what are your hopes for the future? Where do you see yourself going in this medicine thing? What specialty?
Yeah, so I'm still, in the exploratory phase, but I have come across some interest, I think, throughout my first year that I want to continue to explore. So right now I'm considering like emergency medicine, anesthesia, and also like physical medicine, rehabilitation. Um, did some shadowing in the pain intervention. I thought that was really cool. I'm looking at those right now, but I still have an open mind. I think there's just so much in medicine to explore, and I want to make sure I look at all my options and consider carefully before I truly commit to something.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. And with your at the start, I asked you what you be. You said something maybe train or physical therapy, something within the physical performance space. There's a lot of stuff in medicine that can still take it, like PM&R you mentioned, even pain medicine. Even I'm a critical care pulmonologist, and I've even thought, like, in the past, I even thought about, like, man, what would it be like to open up my own, like, performance physiologic center, like, there's in pulmonary and critical care, or in pulmonary cardiology, we do things called like cardiopulmonary exercise testing, CPEX testing. Like, you ever seen the old 50 Cent in the club video at the beginning? He's on the machine, like all that type of stuff, so within the various specialties, there's so many ways to still be connected to the world of sports. It's crazy. You never think about a pulmonologist having that, but there's so much in pulmonary to connect you to the world of sports. Even, it's crazy. And cardiology. All right.
Very true.
Yeah, that's my plug, trying to recruit you to the world of pulmonary.
We just finished cardio and palm too, so
it's a good field, man. Pulmonology is a great field. It's a great field. All right, so I want to wrap it up with asking you one final question. So what words of advice would you give to your, let's say, your high school self? In one sentence, you can tell yourself in high school one thing. What would that sentence be?
I think it would be to trust your own journey, and more importantly, think about, the career and life that you want down the line, and to forego that instant gratification. I think that's something that, as a young, someone that's young coming up, like you get caught up in instant gratification. You just want to, get through the work and start making money and have a life. But, I think ultimately what matters is doing something you love. And so, once I came to terms with that, I was able to accept, med school is long, it's a long journey, but it's ultimately where my passion is. And so I'm happy going through it because I enjoy a lot of the things that we're learning. And I know that's only going to continue to increase as I, further decide on my specialty and what I really want to pursue. So, I think just trust your own journey. Don't compare yourself to your friends. You're going to have friends that come out of school and maybe, have a well-paying job and able to buy a car right out of school, their first house, things like that. But, just focus on yourself. Don't compare yourself to anyone else's journey, because in the end, you'll get to where you want to be. And ultimately everyone gets to the same place, as long as you trust your heart and get to pursue what you're passionate about. I think that's ultimately what matters.
Huge, man. I love it. You strike me as a very patient person overall. So that's, from just hearing your story, you've demonstrated patience at multiple points in time. Excellent. Hey, student doctor, I'm gonna drop the student part. I'm just gonna call you Dr. Chris Koilor. Thank you so much for joining us on the Black Men in White Coats episode, man. I tell the guests sometimes, you guys don't know it, but how many people this story is going to impact, right? How many people are going to go sign up for HPEP now because you talked about, like, just from you telling your story, lives will be changed, right? And I appreciate you telling your story to us, but I just hope you keep on telling it everywhere you go. Just let other people hear your story, and make a difference. To the listeners, hey, love you guys. Appreciate you guys rocking with Black Men in White Coats. Do me a favor. We're trying to grow the YouTube channel, so go to YouTube and find us on YouTube and click the subscribe button, man. Hit subscribe, help us grow the channel. If you listen on podcasts, hey, follow, like, whatever you do on the podcast too, but help us on the YouTube. Let's try to grow. We only got a few hundred followers so far. We just started putting stuff up for here for real, but help us get to 1,000. Let's get to 1,000, man. Really appreciate you guys. Maybe we'll start doing some special prizes when we hit 1,000 or something like that. So PreMed, check out PreMedMondays.com. We got mastermind meetings on Monday nights, and I send you a weekly video. What else? The movie, bmwcmovie.com. If you haven't seen the movie yet, go to bmwcmovie.com. And everybody, make sure you join the email list. And that's blackmenandwhitecoats.org/email. And for those people who are taking the MCAT, who want your MCAT reimbursed, blackmenandwhitecoats.org/MCAT. Thanks for rocking with Black Men and White Coats, y'all. See you next time. Love you.
I want them band like a daddy, yeah. Only do it like Flagger, yeah. I'm kicking flavor, no saga, yeah. Hey, I like them blues. I might go Janet like Jackson. I got them options, yeah. It's all about progression. Life is like a blessing. Everything a win, loss is like a lesson. Ooh, ooh. Yeah, ain't no time for stressing. I've been really stepping. Ooh.